Hello and welcome back to Week 10 in the NFL for the NFL DFS Slate Breakdown. I'm your host, Tyler Weeman, FlatTyler83 on Twitter and on your DFS sites. I will be going over the whole slate. We got 10 games on DraftKings, 11 games on FanDuel. And before we get into it, come join us at LineStar. We have a couple different ways you can try us out. One of them is doing a free trial through the app stores, Android or iOS. Download LineStar app and you can get 7 free days through that if you've never used us before. That is probably the best way to try us out for cheap. Not probably, it is. All right, so we got an interesting slate this week. It's 10 games here on FanDuel. 11 games on FanDuel, 10 games on DraftKings. Our games with the highest total, there's not many, over 46 this week, which hasn't been the case. So we have Atlanta and the Saints at 46, and odds makers seem to think that's going to stay close. It's only a 3.5 point difference. Then we got 49ers and Bucks with a 50-point total, and that's a 6.5 point spread. Then Bills, Colts, another 3.5 spot. And then you got Pittsburgh, Washington's 45.5. So I'll mention that here. And then Jets, Cardinals, 46.5. And the Sunday night game, Lions versus Texan, is 48.5. Now, the fastest games of the week are New Orleans and Atlanta. Then Dallas, Philly, which is only a 43.5 total, but Philly is 7.5 point favorites. And then Denver versus KC, which just is not that high of a game total. I don't mind that one. It is a 42-point game total. I'm probably really not going to get much of that game for my DFS play. Now let's get to position by position, starting with quarterback. We got Sam Darnold, 17% owned. Look, Jags have been awful on defense. They can't stop the pass. We got a 4.5-star alert score. So a lot of good things going his way. On paper, this is an absolute beautiful matchup. But the Vikings just don't need to throw that much. And that's been the problem with Darnold all season long. He's only thrown over 30 pass attempts twice. And I do not expect the Jags, without Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones starting, to be able to be one of those games that they force Minnesota to throw the ball a ton. So while I like Darnold, it's a great matchup, and I think he's going to do fine, I just don't see the ceiling there to really go through that high ownership aspect. I don't mind it, but I'm probably not getting much because the ceiling's just not there. Brock Purdy versus the Tampa Bay Bucks. I am very interested in this spot. Bucks have been able to score enough. They have 24 and 26 points in their 2 games without, Evans and Godwin. So they're still able to score some points. And they had 24 against the KC Chiefs, who is a solid defense. I think this is a great spot for the 49ers offense to really get rolling. They're healthy again. CMC is back, although likely limited. And then we got, Debo, Juwan Jennings back. Kittle's still healthy. This team definitely is coming together again at the right time. And it is a spot where this team could put up over 30 real points. So I'm definitely interested in some Brock. And I think the Bucks likely do enough to bring it back. But they're definitely not, favorites to win this game, as it is a 6.5 point spread where they are underdogs. Next, we got Justin Herbert, 6,900, 15% owned. It's the Tennessee Titans. They are just totally anemic on offense, and what we've seen from the Chargers is that they are, willing to not really push the pace. So we have seen since, week 5 or so that they've been willing to throw the ball a little bit more. 34 attempts, 39 attempts, 32, 27 versus Cleveland. But I think most likely outcome for Herbert is he doesn't throw the ball enough to really get it done. Uh, I don't mind him on DraftKings where he's a bit cheaper, but where he's almost 7K on FanDuel, there's just other guys I like. I think there is going to be a game, though, that we want to go Herbert. I just don't think it's today, especially how the offense kind of or the team has kind of shifted to throwing more than running. Caleb Williams, 7,100 versus New England. I do have some concerns with this game. It is expected to be pretty windy, and that is one thing we definitely need to watch. The wind can affect this game big time, but if it's not windy, it's nice weather. It's an okay spot. I don't mind it. Now let's get to some pivots. Jalen Hurts, a little bit interesting. This team's going to put up points. My issue here is it could just be all on the ground and Saquon going absolutely nuts. But at low ownership, what if, we get a tush-push touchdown and 2 early touchdowns from Hurts passing before they just go totally run heavy. So I think there's a pathway to Hurts having some success, but I don't really love the spot. All right, Josh Allen, 9,200. He's been super consistent lately. The one issue here is the team has just always been winning. And when they're winning, they're not using his legs anymore, which takes away from his ceiling. And I do expect the Bills to be winning this game also. But at least it's an interesting spot, and we know Josh Allen has a giant ceiling, so I am interested to go here. I think the Colts could do enough offensively to keep pushing Bills, but that is one of my worries here is what we've seen from the Bills this season is they are absolutely willing to just run the ball and end the game as quick, make it a shorter game. Once they have that lead, they don't stay super aggressive. I don't mind some Allen, and I do like him more with Keon Coleman out just because his target tree is a little smaller, but I do think the Amari Cooper news being in or out is kind of a game changer. If Cooper is out, I might be out a little bit more on Allen, but I am absolutely interested in him, and I think he's going a little too low owned. For FanDuel, CJ Stroud. All right, so Nico Collins and Tank Dell are both questionable. If they are both in, I think this is a very interesting spot. The Lions haven't been good versus the pass. The Lions are going to score some points, as they always do. And there could be some fireworks on Sunday night. So I think CJ Stroud is interesting. They're giving up 265 yards a game, only 0.8 touchdowns per game to the quarterback. But I think there's absolutely a path for CJ Stroud to succeed. Now, my worry here is that Stroud really hasn't had to do much all year long. He has one good game versus Jacksonville, but he also hasn't really been pushed all season long. So hopefully this is a game that he can really get pushed and they can open up the offense. And if so, Nico Collins, Tank Dell are starting to look really interesting. The issue, we may not know if Collins or Tank Dell are playing until an hour and a half before. So playing CJ Stroud, he might go a little under-owned because of that, but I think there are some paths to success there, and I'm a little interested in that. And if that's the case, then Jared Goff is obviously a bit interesting. The Texans' run D has been very good, and Jared Goff has been lighting it up, but he is another guy, hasn't had to throw the ball. 22 attempts, 15, 25, 25, 18, 23, 55, and 28. So he has only gone over 30 once. It is just wild. Hopefully this is a game that can change that a little bit, and then if it is, his pass catchers look interesting as well. Jaden Daniels, 8,400. Look, Pittsburgh defense is good. However, Jaden Daniels is one of the top quarterbacks on the defensive matchup tool over the last 5 games, and we know Jaden is good. He also carries a decent ceiling because of his rushing upside. I'm absolutely interested with some Jaden Daniels. My issue with this spot is all of his options are pretty high priced. for what they have done this year. Jaden just hasn't had to really sling the ball much. He has three games of 30 plus throws. So hopefully with Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh offense scoring points under Russell Wilson, that it forces Jaden to throw a little bit. It is an avenue I'm interested in. I would probably be just stacking them with one guy. I wouldn't go to two because really for him to crush, we're hoping he runs one in and he adds, 60, 70 yards plus rushing. I'm interested in Daniels for sure. Next, we got Baker Mayfield, 8,200. The issue here is, one of the good things is his stacking partners are cheap. His wide receivers are Keem Jarrett, Sterling Shepard, maybe Jalen McMillan, and then Cade Otton is absolutely the number one as it is right now in this passing option. So Baker, been crushing all season long. He is the number one fantasy quarterback, and I'm fine to go back here. I do have some reservations if he can keep doing it with this group, but he has been, and so I'm at least a little bit interested in this spot. My one worry is if Baker's getting there, Brock Purdy, I feel like Brock is just more likely to score more points than Baker if Baker's getting there. But I'm going to have both sides of that game. Lastly, Mac Jones. This is more so for you DraftKings people and to remind myself to make sure to talk about him. On DraftKings, he's 4,400. Vikings defense is awful. The Vikings offense is good and going to score points against a very bad Jags defense. So Mac Jones may have to sling it. Now, at 4,400 on DraftKings, I think that is a super interesting avenue to go down. You have decent weapons. Maybe Gabe Davis is back. You got Brian Thomas. You have Evan Ingram, who without Christian Kirk is much better. Then you have, Parker Washington and some value guys as well. I'm definitely interested in Mac on DraftKings, but only on DraftKings. Going over to DK, our high owned. We got Darnold, we got Herbert, we got Purdy. We talked about them all. Aaron Rodgers is also sneaking in there at 5,700, only 9% owned, but he is absolutely worth talking about. Arizona D hasn't been great over the last 264 yards per game, 1.3 touchdowns. So you could go the Aaron Rodgers route. The other thing that's nice with Rodgers is Adams and Wilson are both likely just to be targeted a ton. Alan Lazard's on IR, and even Tyler Conklin is questionable. So after those two, the passing game really drops off as far as talent and where Rodgers will want to go with the ball. Another issue, though, with him is he generally just doesn't sling it that often. So he is another guy that's been efficient. I don't mind going to Rodgers in this spot. The Arizona offense is good enough to score some points, but I do worry about Rodgers really having to sling it, and that's really when he's had his big games in his career, is when he's being pushed. I don't know if the Cardinals are going to do it, but there's definitely a path to success there. Our top matchup tool spots: Purdy, Goff, Darnold, Hurts. We literally covered them all, so let's just get over to running back. High-owned running back, Breece Hall. He's a beast. Absolutely willing to play him. This Arizona defense has been much better lately, though, and better against the run, but they're still giving it up through the air to the running back. You can absolutely go to Breece. He's had a couple down games, but the volume he gets, the explosiveness he has, I'm absolutely fine going there. My issue with running backs this week is there's not a ton I like that's not chalky. So I'm probably kind of living in chalk this week. Najee Harris, 7,100 versus the Commanders. 300-yard games in a row. My issue here is he has 2 touchdowns on the year, and he's pretty much a yardage and touchdown back. So you're losing a lot of upside there. You absolutely have to have him score a touchdown for him to be optimal. And it's only happened twice this year. So will it happen now? I don't know. But it has at least happened 2 of the last 3 games. Najee is definitely interesting and on my short list. Aaron Jones, 7,900. This is a spot that, I would be totally 100% all over if he wasn't high owned. I think Aaron Jones is in a great spot. And what we've seen is in the games that they have won by the most or have had to be pushed where he's had his best games. I think he's going to run wild versus the Jags. I don't think they're going to be able to stop him. The Jags are allowing a touchdown a game. 0.9 on the season over the last 4, 1 a game to their RB. Very interested in Aaron Jones. The one issue is that he is 8K and you're looking at, 18 to 22 touches. And I don't think there's, much room to go up over that. They are being cautious with his workload. They have capable guys behind him. So that's my worry, is just the touch volume is not there. DeAndre Swift, 7,700. So there could be a lot of wind in this game. Could lead to more running. Swift is in a great spot, and the Pats have been awful versus the run, allowing 150 a game over the last 4 and 1.3 touchdowns. I think that's enough, and we could just move on. Swift is in a great spot. Saquon Barkley, 9,600. This dude has more game-winning weeks than anybody else in the league right now, and now he's in a spot where the Cowboys are terrible on defense. They don't have Dak. CeeDee Lamb is banged up. It could look ugly. This game could look real ugly, and Barkley could be running a ton. Now, there is some worry. What if, say, the first 3 touchdowns of the game go to the receivers or tight ends and Hurts runs one in? And now we're up, 27 or 24-7, and we're going into the 4th quarter and they're pulling Barkley because they've won it. So that is my worry. But this is an absolute great spot, and I don't mind playing him whatsoever. He has been routinely in the perfect lineup, and he's in one of the best spots we have this week. So makes a ton of sense to go there. Joe Mixon, 9K, 14% owned. The one thing with Mixon is his workload has been huge. Dameon Pierce is out again, so that workload should stay this week. The Lions also have started giving it up to running backs a little bit more now that Aiden Hutchinson is out. So I am slightly interested here just because of the workload, and they're starting to give it up a little bit. James Conner, I think, is super interesting at 7,600. Don't love Jamar Gibbs, but he can kill you in enough ways that it's interesting. I'm off Kareem Hunt. Kamara's workload is giant. The guy had 35 touches. He also had 3 additional targets, so 38 attempts at the ball. Just wild. I don't know if he gets that workload again. I would highly doubt he gets that workload again. I mean, Saints aren't making the playoffs, so it doesn't really make sense to give him that workload. But Jamal Williams is doubtful. Kendre Miller is on IR. Your backup running back is pretty much Taysom Hill, and they have no wide receiver. So where else are they going to go? The workload should be there. Maybe not 38 touches, but maybe 25, 26. I'm fine to go here, especially in DraftKings where it's full point PPR. He could have a ton of catches, but I definitely have worries about the Saints offense just being able to score the ball. I mean, 22 points versus Carolina, 8 versus the Chargers, 10 versus Denver. That's some real bad offense there. So definitely worries there if he's super high owned. All right, pivot wise, Jonathan Taylor versus the Bills. Where you've been able to get to the Bills is on the running back, through the running back, and this is another good spot for him. JT also was able to get 5 targets last game. If those targets are there with Flacco from here on out, JT starts to look super interesting, and he's more than just a touchdown and yardage back. So definitely have some interest there, but really hard to flip off Barkley Well, I mean, Barkley's 1K more. But say flip off Alvin Kamara and known workload to Jonathan Taylor at the same price. That's the only issue there, but I think JT is in a great spot. Rachaad White, 6,400. Look, Tampa Bay is likely to be down. They have no wide receivers. Rachaad White, I think, is going to be used through the passing game a lot, so he's very interesting, especially in DraftKings where you get the extra half point. The only issue is that he's just not on the field the entire game. You know, it's a 1A, 1B with Irving there, but I think the Bucs will probably have a hard time running the ball, and if they're down, more passing means more Rachaad White. I'm definitely interested in him a little bit. Irving could break one, so fine with having a little bit of him, but White is more interesting to me. Bijan Robinson versus the Saints. Saints have been giving up on the ground. My worry here is that in the games that they have been leading or just won, Tyler Algier does take more of the workload. So I do have some worries that Algier will be the one kind of running the clock out and getting all those extra points. And we kind of need those for him to really have a ceiling game. He's 8,800 and he's gone over 23 times. It's just pretty pricey to really want to go back there. But it is a good spot, so I don't mind having a little bit. That's all I got for the liked ones right now. Let's check DraftKings high owned. We got Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley. He's in a smash spot. DeAndre Swift, also in a smash spot. We talked about Bijan. Kareem Hunt, I just said no on, but look, it's a Denver spot where they are tough on the run. Hunt is getting enough workload to warrant his price, 6,600. So if you want to go there, by all means, do it. I just don't love it because he really needs 100 yards and a tutty to get it done, and I just don't know if he has 100 yards in him in this spot. So for that reason, I'm kind of out on him. James Cook is interesting. He could absolutely run all over the Colts, but since the Ray Davis emergence, he hasn't got as many touches, so I do have some worry about his volume there. But he is interesting and definitely viable. And then James Cook, I think, is in a very interesting spot. Fully willing to take some James Conner. I think I said James Cook again, but James Conner. Matchup-wise, check it out real quick. RB1, Eckler, Robinson, Bijan Robinson, Connor, Kamara, CMC. We did not talk about CMC. We need to. All right, he's 9,400 on FanDuel. On DK, he is 8K. He is super interesting at 8K. Now, we are unsure of the workload that we're going to see from him. He could be limited. It could be a 50-50 timeshare. Or he could come out and touch the ball 70% of the time or play 70% of the snaps. If he's the 70% snap guy, he is an absolute smash at this price and these ownerships. If he's the 50% guy, he's a total stay away. So watch all the news you can this week to figure out who he is this week. I am interested in him and going to play him, push him into some lineups. But I'm going to be cautious with how much I push him in because I do have some worry. Another one I wanted to talk about with Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is on the short list of running backs or of people I will play with Jaden Daniels. Steelers are ahead. Jaden has to throw a little bit. Eckler is going to be out there a lot, and that receiving prowess is enough for me to want some Eckler. Now, getting over to the wide receiver room. So we got Ladd McConkey, 31%. Issue is I just don't think they're going to have to throw the ball that much, and he's 6,300. He's likely only getting 6-7 targets. Real hard to go to that ownership. Calvin Ridley, 5,800, 30% owned. Chargers have a very tough pass D. Don't love going to Calvin Ridley. Also, Levis is back, and they just haven't really got it done together. So big time worries there. I'm fine having some Ridley because of the target volume at this price. DeAndre Hopkins, this is an interesting one. Denver has been very tough versus the pass through the season, but over the last 156 yards a game to the wide receiver and 1.3 touchdowns. Zay Flowers just torched them, and Surtain wasn't shadowing Flowers. So I don't know if there's a shift there in their philosophy or not, but if Hopkins is not shadowed by Surtain, he starts to look super interesting to me. So I'm going to have a little bit of D-Hop, but I'm not going to have a ton, because I think very real possibility that good old Pat Surtain is the one on him. Tank Dell, I love this week. George Pickens, I am 100% on board with having a little bit of. The target volume is there for his price. We know he's athletic and he's a freak and can get it done. Totally down there. Justin Jefferson, I'm never going to say no to you. Josh Downs, 7,100. My only issue here is Bills have just been really good versus the wide receiver. There's no Pittman, though, so he should get some extra volume, at least a little interesting. All right, pivots. A.J. Brown, he's 8,900. One of the things, I don't really like the high-priced wide receivers. I think I would rather just go, say, Saquon Barkley or one of the high-priced running backs over these high-priced wide receivers. But there is a path to A.J. Brown crushing the slate. He's done it before. 100 and a touchdown week 1, 100 and a touchdown week 6, his second game, 89 and a touchdown week 7. So he does absolutely have a path. He didn't finish the game week 9, but he's off the injury report, so he should be a full go. Cowboys defense is awful. Don't mind going to A.J. Brown. Deebo Samuel has a giant ceiling. There's no Ayuk, so he's wide receiver 1. He's going to get some play. If CMC is limited, he's going to be used to run the ball as well. I'm definitely interested in Deebo, but it's probably only going to be in Purdy stacks or in Mayfield stacks with a Samuel run back. Definitely interested, though. That ceiling is just too high not to. Amari Cooper, no Keon Coleman. I think this is a great spot for the Bills offense. Colts are dynamic. Colts can get it done. They're not that dynamic, but they can get it done enough to push the Bills, and the Bills stay aggressive enough. Cooper, 6,700. He's super talented. He's now been with the team for a few weeks. If he plays, and that is an if, he sat out last week, he's questionable now, I think he's very, very interesting and don't mind having some Cooper. Garrett Wilson, him, Devontae Adams, both I'm in on. I think the target volume for them this week is going to be absolutely gigantic. Lazard is out. Tyler Conklin is questionable. Wilson, Adams, wheels up in a great spot versus the Cardinals, who can't stop anybody through the air, that is. Khalil Shakir, once again, no Coleman, and I like Bills wide receivers this week. Cooper, Shakir, both are interesting. The one thing with Shakir is he needs so many targets to get over 100. You know, we need double-digit targets for him to get over 100. Now, there is a path with no Coleman there. He should be on the field more, but upside could be a little limited here where it's not with Cooper. That's why I do prefer Cooper. Brian Thomas Jr., I'm very interested in him in this matchup versus the Vikings, who haven't been able to stop anybody. It is Matt Collins probably at quarterback, but I think Thomas is going to get plenty of targets, and I like him. Very interested there. Raheem Jarrett would be my play for Tampa. Got to talk Nico Collins, though. He's 8,800. He is one of the high-priced WRs that I would really like. If he's back, he is questionable. We don't really have an idea yet. Hopefully we know before Sunday. But I'm absolutely interested in him, and I'm willing to make a couple lineups that are Texan stacks and, just hope it works out. The other option, if you do want to play Nico Collins, I think Amon-Ra is only $200 more, so on Nico Collins lineups, just make the max, $200 less than your max salary, so you could just pivot to Amon-Ra if you had to in those lineups. I think there is, that path, which you could get Nico at low ownership in a good spot. So definitely interested to some Nico. If he's back, he's going to be a full go. Wide receivers on DraftKings: D-Hop, McConkey, Josh Downs, Adams, Wilson. Quentin Johnston is absolutely interesting at 4,900. He's just had some giant weeks, 25 and 22. So with that kind of ceiling at that price, you got to be a little interested. Aiden Mitchell could get extra run with Pittman out. He gets targeted a ton when he's on the field. So if he's on the field, he's probably getting targeted. Just not a great matchup versus the Bills. That's the only worry there. Top WR1 matchups: Hopkins, Amon-Ra, Calvin Ridley, Cedric Wilson, Harrison. And let's get over to tight end. High-owned tight end, Hunter Henry versus Chicago Bears, 15% owned. I'm fine if you want to go there. It's not a spot that I really love. I do like Drake May as a quarterback, and Henry's been getting targets with him. And I think that Drake May and Hunter Henry are probably going to win somebody a milli this year. I just don't think it's this week. This Chicago's D is solid, and I just have a hard time wanting to throw too much ownership that way. Kyle Pitts, he's absolutely interesting. Drake London's banged up. It looks like Drake London will play. If he's not, Pitts is going to get more targets, so he's super interesting. Zach Ertz, 5K. He's one of the guys that I would consider to stack Jaden Daniels with. I'm probably not playing him outside of Daniels stacks, though. Taysom Hill. All right, so we talked about Alvin Kamara. He is pretty much his RB2. Last week, 5 targets, 5 carries. 6,300, that's a lot of work out of a tight end. He has a giant ceiling. Definitely willing to have some Taysom there. Dalton Kincaid, I like the Bills in a good spot. Cade Otton, the guy has been too good and peppered with too many targets. 11, 10, 10 the last 3 weeks. The 49ers are a bend, don't break defense, so that underneath is going to be open. He's going to probably have 10, 12 targets. It's just a matter of does he get in the end zone or not to make this price make sense. And then Evan Ingram. There's no Christian Kirk. He's going to get the ball his way. He had 10 targets last week in the first week without Kirk. I'm very interested in him. And then Trey McBride. With Hassan Reddick back, the Jets had 8 sacks last game. If they're getting after the quarterback like that again, 1, Jets defense is interesting, but 2, the ball's going to have to come out a little quicker, so maybe some more targets for McBride. A little interested in him, don't absolutely love it. Tight end on DK, Cade Otton, Hunter Henry. We didn't talk about Travis Kelce or George Kittle. Kelsey's fine. I just don't think the Chiefs are going to get pushed at all. And with that, I just think they're going to run the ball endlessly. So that's why I don't mind Hunt, but I just don't, love the spot for that offense in general. George Kittle, 5,800. Dude has been crushing it this year. Absolutely fine to go here. There's no Ayuk, so he is, technically the wide receiver too, but a tight end. Very interested in some Kittle and one of my favorite stack partners with Purdy. And get over to defense and then wrap it up here. High-owned, Bears, Chargers, Lions. I can't say no to any of those, especially if Nico Collins is out. Don't love the Pittsburgh D call. I think the Chiefs are okay. My favorite pivots, Jets. We've seen the Cardinals have some real bad games and could be some more pressure. 8 sacks last week and keeping the Texans to 13 is pretty solid. I think this defense with Reddick back is going to be different and going to be solid. So definitely fine having some Jets. And then the Eagles versus the Cowboys and Cooper Rush. I mean, that's a no-brainer, and I think they should probably be higher owned than they are. On DraftKings side, Bears, Chargers, Bills. Bills versus Indy. Indy looked pretty bad last week. It makes some sense to want to go there, especially at 3,200. They're fairly cheap. Of the cheapies, where would I go? Broncos, a possibility. Patriots versus Caleb Williams. You could go to there as well, but, don't love either of those, but that would be what I think off the top of my head. Now that'll do it for us today, guys. Another week. Week 10 is here. Good luck. Let's make some money. I will talk to you guys later. Peace. Please like, comment, and subscribe.